Monday Night Bitcoin. Timer starts now.
Everybody, happy Monday. Your weekly shot in the arm.
Boom. 21 minutes. Let's do this. How was your
Let's do
week?
it. My week is great.
What did you learn about?
This last weekend, well, I'm running a Nest thermostat now. That was my exciting weekend. I was going to post it on Twitter and be like, running Nest. But then I knew a bunch of people would make fun of me for letting Google know my temperature inside my house.
Bad OPSEC.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah.
That somehow qualifies. Just like to point out here that we have two, not one, but just two signs that let us know to practice social distancing. So we are not doing that, but not because we don't believe in it, although we don't. I mean, this thing has gotten a little bit out of control. This is how my weekend was. It was just wondering when all this is going to not be a thing and returning to some sense of human interaction.
Yeah.
That I think is actually healthy. And like specifically this time, it's like, be courteous to your neighbors by staying away from them.
Yeah. No, we have officially reached the up is down, down is up part of the show.
So what does this have to do with Bitcoin?
Everything. It's all connected. As you know, viewers of Monday Night Bitcoin know that it's all connected. But sometimes you just need a little encouragement. Sometimes you need a little hope. That's where I felt like today.
Yeah. Today was kind of a weird day. We talked a little bit on the preview about moon to flow.
Yeah.
Which is not a real thing. But it might be. And the idea behind it is we all kind of search for things to put our hope in, whether that's Bitcoin generally, or within that there's like the stock to flow model. Some people put their hope in that. Moon to flow is something I just invented. It says that when there is a full moon, Bitcoin price pumps, which does from time to time. But really what we're ultimately getting at is that you can't put your hope in things that are centralized, that someone just kind of made up and then controls the fate of.
Yeah.
Okay. So for example, TikTok is in the news a lot. That's a centralized social network that my daughter is a person who has put a lot of hope in and created this following. Don't worry, she doesn't put her face or her real name on there. She just like screenshots like herself like playing like this iPad video game, and has grown in popularity. And we tell her like, don't put your hope in this thing because it could be gone tomorrow. And here we are. Now I can have this conversation with her that like, hey, it might get banned in the US.
Yeah.
And you're going to lose all those followers.
Zoomer's about to learn not your views, not your database.
That's right. That's right. And so I think that's one of the beautiful things about Bitcoin is that we don't have to put our hope in these things that we don't ultimately control.
You don't even realize like how much of the world can be manipulated, how much of the world is driven through these like central choke points that can be cut off.
Look at the elections. This is another thing that's really big in the news right now. It's like how many people over the last couple of years have been putting their hope and their money and their time and their resources into trying to get so-and-so elected because they think it's going to be the new hope of the world.
Hope, right.
And there's no hope in that.
And supposedly democracy is supposed to be this like decentralized thing. Like it was founded on good merits and the Constitution talking about how, splitting up the rights of power, not allowing it to be so, centralized. And so
I don't know what else to do besides put hope in something that is not centralized, that someone else can't say, you know what, we're going to push back the election this year, or you know what, we're going to shut down TikTok.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin is a solution for that. Bitcoin is hope in the face of that.
And so even by process of elimination, like if you're still watching and Bitcoin's still confusing to you, that's fine. It is. Bitcoin's confusing. Bitcoin's weird. Bitcoin's crazy. You're absolutely right. Look outside and then use those same words to describe everything that's happening in the legacy world also. So that doesn't make me afraid anymore. Like that's not a barrier for me finding new things to put my trust in anymore, because the legacy world has ruined their reputation all on their own. And every single day when we see just like, we knew this was going to happen. We knew they were going to slowly say, I don't know if the debate should happen. I don't know if it's safe to go outside. I don't know. So they're trying to normalize.
And so for me, I think this week has been revealing a couple things. So the pump last week went all the way up to 12. We crashed down to 11. And I'm fine as a Bitcoiner. I've come to expect these highs and these lows. I'm not stressed at all. I'm excited. I think we're entering the new, and I'm excited. One of the things that has kind of been revealed is like, I don't know how much like trying to convince my friends who aren't there yet, trying to yank them into sort of awakening, right? I don't know how much of that I can stomach anymore. And that's kind of fresh. That's kind of new for me. I've been reflecting on this because I don't want to convince my friend to buy in at that 12K number and then it crashes. And now I'm like responsible for this person.
Yeah.
When the whole point of this is to be free. I don't want to be tied down to that. I mean, I know like OG Bitcoiners and a lot of people who've been around for a while have kind of been saying these types of things. And I think there's a lot of truth to it that I'm coming to realize.
Yeah. Someone tweeted something good the other day that they're like, they don't even talk about Bitcoin anymore. They almost like reverse red pill. They just talk about how messed up the world is. And they're like, as soon as you're ready to do something about it, then you can come and talk to me. Because that really is what it comes down to. Like Bitcoin is the solution. Bitcoin is fully different, a fully radical paradigm, completely different than everything else that's out there. And that's why it doesn't hit everybody like very, very well. Some people don't want their worldview shaken. And when you come in speaking hard truths, you are shaking their worldview. And I think that's where some Bitcoiners do get burnt out on just like constantly having people react negatively to what they're saying. Like no one is going to react positively to their whole worldview being crushed. It was like when Bill Burr was like listening to Pump, it was just like this. And everyone was like, Pop, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. You're not even telling him the right way. Oh my God, it's never. And I loved his tweet back because it was like, dude, that's not a disengaged face. This is the face you make when you realize that you're 50 years old and like everything you built your life on like is quicksand.
Huh. That's interesting.
He's having the same experience that your daughter's having, not having heard. The views are not on solid ground. Their house is built on a rock. Their house is on sand.
Ooh, biblical references. That took a while. That took us like 6 minutes to get a biblical reference.
We didn't even have that on the board today. We found our biblical reference today. Okay, really fast story of sand versus rocks. If you have a place to build your house, are you going to build your house on the sand? No, you're going to build your house on a rock because sand gets swept away. And I think that's what we're realizing right now is a lot of the world's built on sand. Everything. The presidential election is built on sand. TikTok is built on sand. The Federal Reserve literally is a quicksand. Literally.
And Bitcoin stands out.
Bitcoin stands out.
21 million of them, and then it's over. So that is a solid rock. That's why we call it hard money versus soft money, which can be printed and printed and printed and devalued underneath everything that's happening. And before you know it, prices start shooting up, and it all just kind of goes to nothingness.
Yeah, and honestly, there's nothing really clever that you can come up with about it, like not being a rock. It seriously has been covered. Like the people with like the harshest game theory minds in the world that God has put on earth have like come over this thing. It's been around for 11 years now, and so that's where just increasingly week after week come to this place of like Bitcoin is the solution. There's no hedging anymore. There's no hedging. It's not a joke. Bitcoin is the solution.
Right. I like what you tweeted earlier that it's quiet. And I don't know why that resonated so much, but there was something about this like eye of the hurricane or this calm before the storm that we're all kind of experiencing. And we're seeing kind of the conditioning, the patterns of conditioning that they're trying to prepare us for. Like, oh, the election's going to be delayed or there's not going to be debates.
Yeah.
And all this stuff just points to where they're gearing up for something. And I don't know, the fall is always the time for something big to happen, right? It's the start of school. It's the start of football season. It's like when, at least in America, things happen. So this year is an election year, and they're gearing up for something. This is the calm before the storm.
Who's the they? Like, let's cover that real quick because I use that they a lot. And I talk about the system and the ruling class and like things like that. But I think some people that I talk to, like, we want people to be good and we want to have hope in other people. We started off by making fun of this sign about saying like caring for people is staying away from people or whatever. No, that doesn't make any sense. And so some people that still have trust in the system and trust in politicians and trust in their pastors and kind of, trust is not inherently bad, and not every person in like I don't know, like the people in power may not be individually out to get you or get us or whatever.
Right.
So when the word they is this, there is like an abstract non-human element to just the bureaucracy and levels of power above normal people.
Right.
Like,
and this is the whole
and
systems versus.
and everyone's just doing their job. And so, yeah, when we say they, we're talking about systems.
Mhm. Right. Whoever made the sign
Just doing their job.
just doing their job. And if they don't make this sign that somebody like 8 layers above them told them to make,
Yeah.
they're not going to have a job. They're not going to be able to pay their bills. They're not going to be able to feed their families.
And here's what happened. Like my brain, when I see this sign, I think about the rent money that made this sign.
Yeah.
And I think about the marketing person that had to sit there and write these words.
Mhm.
And these words are telling people to stay away from each other. These words are breaking down community. These words are physically saying that the way to be courteous, and what the central point of the Bible, like love your neighbor, is saying to love your neighbor by staying away from them. That is false. That's like verifiably false. That's what happens in my head when I see this. And when I drive on the freeways and I see those signs banging into people's brains, their brain matter every day saying, cover your face and stay away from people.
Yeah. It's unnatural.
That weighs on my brain. And so if you're watching this and you're not like as into, feeling the powers of this world and things like that, just recognize that there's people in your life that weighs really heavy on that.
Right. Now, there is, so I've seen people make the distinction between there is a virus, but there isn't a pandemic. And I think that's a good way of saying it. There's obviously something out there that's making people sick, okay? I don't know what it is. I don't know how serious it is. Some people say it's just like innocent as the flu. Other people say it's like, no, it's like the bubonic plague or whatever. And it's probably neither, right? It's probably something that if you have an immune deficiency, you should probably be careful. Be more careful than other people. If you're an at-risk person, like, yeah, this sign is going to be louder to you than it is to other people. So the point isn't to be idiot. The point is to not necessarily take the authority that systems sort of prescribe and just take it as gospel truth all the time. You really need 2 signs to tell me this? Like, as if I haven't seen it on the highway signs or every time I log into the internet. Like, I get it.
And to that point too of like, I don't know how serious is it, but like if we weren't arguing about this, we'd be arguing about something else. Right. If the sign didn't say this, like it's not about the virus. Right. It's not about the virus. It's not about hydrochloroquine. It's not about any of this stuff. It's not about wearing masks or not wearing masks. Like, I don't want to argue with you. Right. I don't want to argue with you. I don't want to argue with the Tea Party and Republicans. I don't want to argue with Democrats. I don't want to argue with BLM. I don't want to argue with Antifa. I don't want to argue with Christians. I don't want to argue with atheists. I don't want to argue with rap versus country music. I don't want to argue about any of that stuff. All of that stuff, I guarantee you, I have more in common with all of that stuff than I do with the they of the federal government.
Right.
Like, seriously. And of the UN and the World Health Organization and all this stuff, all those people, the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, guaranteed. Like, I'm a pleb. I'm just a person. I'm a serf on this internet with you on someone else's database right now talking to you.
Someone wrote in the chat, fear is becoming a virtue for some. That is a fascinating quote.
Yeah.
Because fear ultimately is what erodes human interaction. What erodes life.
Right.
You think about the miracle of just even being alive starts with what? Breathing air. Just like literally taking a breath.
Yeah.
Like, where does that come from? You have no control over that, right? And then when you start layering in bureaucracy and fear and all these things that want to control us, things become like, there's nothing natural. This isn't natural. This is unnatural to cover your face. We need to breathe in order to stay alive, right?
Yeah.
And so I just think we have to be suspicious of things that tell us not to be alive, tell us not to breathe.
Yeah.
Someone says, stand before me. I don't know what that means.
Let me know.
But
amen.
Is that but just biblical?
I don't know. It just seems
it sounds deep.
Yeah, it
sounds
deep.
I like it. Odell. Shout out to Odell.
Here's something that happened to me. There was another person who was over at my house on the weekend, and they were just speaking a lot of truth. And then they could see
Makes your face smile in the presence.
they were just speaking a lot of truth, and they could see that like I wanted to. And normally I have a lot to say, and so they're like, "Well, what are you going to say?" Like I know you have something to say, and honestly, I was just like, "Look, you said it all. Like I just want to agree with you. I just want to amplify it because just because you speak about the powers of this world in a different way than I do, I don't need to add anything to it. I don't need to oversell it. And so if in whatever way you feel like the powers of this world are like encroaching on just you and encroaching on people's abilities to live like content, fulfilled lives with their family and own their own wealth and just go through life, don't let anyone else talk you out of that. Because yeah, so
By the way,
like that.
I noticed you got a haircut.
Yes, did get a haircut.
You got to show it off.
Yeah, look,
What?
business in the front, growing it out in the back.
I love it. That's beautiful.
My wife's trying to cut it for me this weekend.
It's freedom. That's the freedom haircut right there.
We're not going back to normal. Like there's no, I almost cut the whole thing off down to a mustache too. We might get there because I just don't, there's no real going back to normal.
Hey, much love back at Odell. All jokes. Love it. Thanks for tuning in. So, systems versus people. This is really, really important. I think that when I criticize, for instance, Joe Biden or Donald Trump, it's much more of a critique of the entire system. Like, I just have lost faith and hope and trust in the idea that anybody could fill the role of the presidency and see the kind of change that we need to see on this earth in order for things to improve for humanity. Now, that's a big deal. That means that fundamentally what we've been doing for 250 years, what I'm saying, my critique is that that no longer works.
Right.
And that's going to mess with a lot of people's like reality because, you know, November's coming and it's been 4 years. And so we got to line up at the polls and we got to vote. I'm like, I don't know, do we? Has that been working for us? What are the results of that been? And I just, you know, I've been on both teams. I've been on the red team and the blue team throughout my life. And I've memorized the talking points and I could argue each side. I could argue against each side probably better than most people, more proficiently than most people. I can tell you why Obama is better, why Trump is better, why Bush is better. Like, and the reality is the whole system is fundamentally broken.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about systems, we need to recognize that all of the critiques about Bitcoin come from a place of criticizing a new system. So new people in a new system is different than just new people in an old system.
Yes.
So,
say that again. Hit that again from a different way too.
All right,
that's good.
So if we get rid of what we're currently doing, the fiat system and the presidency and all of this stuff, and we replace it with a Bitcoin standard, a Bitcoin system, we've heard the critique of, well, what's going to stop, you know, Bitcoiners from being like the new Rockefellers?
Right.
And you can go down 18 different roads of that. But the point is, before we even have that debate, we have to recognize that the entire conversation has changed.
Yeah.
We're now talking about a new system, right? Occupied by new people. So we can talk about what that looks like, but we have to recognize that all of the rules have changed.
Yes.
It's not just, oh, we got to replace Trump with Biden because that's going to make things better, or whoever else you're right. That's just new person, old system.
Right.
We need new system and new people.
Totally. And so you know what that makes me think of? Maybe that doesn't mean the Bitcoiners need to shy away and, you know, only accept inbound and, oh, we don't need marketing. Maybe we need to go even bigger. Like you need to describe Bitcoin as an even bigger paradigm because people are still not understanding that Bitcoin is a brand new game. Bitcoin is not tinkering at the edges. Because that's what people are only used to tinkering at the edges. Like, oh, we need reform. We need this new politician in.
No.
That is not reform. Reform is dumping the tea in the harbor and going to war. We're starting a different country.
No, that's
Bitcoin
revolution.
is a
That's revolution. So
revolution.
reform is tweaking, I think.
Okay.
Reform is let's work within the system.
Yeah.
Let's change this, change that. Like that is reform, and I think there is a time and place for it, but it was just not 2020. Like all reforms, I think we have to just kind of get rid of this idea that we can reform our way to an improved.
That's the thing. I've never even seen a reform that did anything. So I just immediately started talking about revolution because or it's just we talk a lot pretty well in the past episodes of just like words are watered down. We don't even know what they mean anymore. And even just you saw like the word tinkering. People say reform, reform, but they're really talking about tinkering. They're not talking about anything. Like you can't, And so
Tower of Babel. It's the tower. We live at the Tower of Babel. We're all using the same words, and we're describing something completely different. So our conversations don't even really matter when Biden supporters and Trump supporters are going at it.
And that's what I was saying about my friend over the weekend. I was like, I don't need to critique anything they're saying. I don't like the very fact that you walked into my house and started speaking truth in your own words is what I'm thankful for today. I don't need to edit the way that you're saying it. Like, go out in the world and say that now. Like, do it.
All right, it is 4:20, which means we have 1 minute to wrap this Monday Night Bitcoin as price is at 11,208.
208.
As we head into a full moon. So we're going to test the moon to flow theory. And the target price is
12,000.
12,000. And if what's the band?
Just 12,000.
It has to hit 12,000?
Wow, the moon is full.
All right, we'll see what happens. Good luck, and we will see you all next week. Thanks for tuning in.